Soren Hayes wiped down the massage table with practiced efficiency, the scent of lavender oil lingering in the air of his wellness center. 10 years of military service as a combat medic had given him steady hands and an almost supernatural ability to ease pain. These days, he preferred the quiet work of helping people heal through gentler means. The soft chime of the front door drew his attention. "Be right there," he called, tossing the cleaning cloth into a hamper. When he stepped into the reception area, he stopped short. His new client was distinctly not human. She stood just under 6 feet tall, her skin a shimmering aqua blue that seemed to ripple like sunlight on water. Delicate gill-like structures lined her neck, and her eyes were the color of tropical oceans. Despite her alien appearance, she carried herself with a grace that spoke of medical training. "I am Naira," she said, her voice melodic but tinged with exhaustion. "I was told you might be able to help me." Soren's medical instincts kicked in immediately. The way she held herself, the slight tremor in her hands, she was in pain, though trying hard to hide it. "I'm Soren Hayes. Please, come in." He gestured toward his consultation room. "Who referred you?" "Dr. Patel at the Interspecies Medical Center." Naira followed him, her movements careful and measured. "She said you have unusual abilities." Soren's jaw tightened slightly. His gift wasn't something he advertised, but certain doctors in the know sometimes sent him special cases. His ability to channel healing energy through touch had saved lives during his service, though the military had classified it as advanced battlefield medicine rather than admit to employing someone with unexplainable abilities. "Take a seat," he offered, indicating a comfortable chair. "What seems to be the problem?" Naira perched on the edge of the chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I am a healer among my people, the Celestins. We channel energy to heal others, but lately..." She hesitated. "My abilities have become unstable." Dr. Patel thought perhaps someone with similar gifts might understand. Soren leaned against his desk, studying her with professional interest. "You're the first Celestin I've met who's mentioned healing abilities. I thought your species was known for atmospheric engineering." "Most are," Naira acknowledged. "Healers are rare among us. Rarer still since..." She trailed off, pain flickering across her features. "Since what?" Soren prompted gently. "Since the hunters came." Naira's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They seek our healing energy, drain it for their own use. I've been running for so long." Soren straightened, his protective instincts flaring. "You're safe here. Flora Springs is a sanctuary city, strong alien protection laws." He moved closer, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "May I?" He held out his hands. Naira nodded hesitantly. When their hands touched, Soren gasped. Her energy signature was like nothing he'd ever encountered, complex layers of healing power tangled with exhaustion and fear. But underneath it all was something else, something building like pressure in a sealed container. "How long has it been since you've properly used your abilities?" he asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Months," Naira admitted. "Using them makes me easier to track. But containing them..." She shuddered. "It hurts. Like trying to dam a river with your bare hands," Soren murmured. He could feel it now, the tremendous strain she was under. "No wonder you're in pain. This isn't sustainable. What choice do I have?" Soren released her hands, mind racing through possibilities. "Work with me," he said finally. "My abilities might be different from yours, but I think I can help you find balance. And in return..." He smiled slightly. "I suspect I could learn a thing or two from a Celestin healer." Naira studied him, hope warring with caution in her expression. "You would risk helping me? If the hunters learn of your abilities..." "I spent 10 years patching up soldiers under fire," Soren said firmly. "I'm not afraid of a few bounty hunters." Besides, he added with a wry grin, my healing style could use some refinement. Military medicine isn't exactly known for its subtlety. That earned him a small laugh, the sound like wind chimes in a breeze. Very well, Naira agreed. When do we begin? No time like the present. Soren gestured to the massage table. Let's start by releasing some of that pressure safely. I'll guide you through it. As Naira settled onto the table, Soren felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. He'd helped hundreds of patients over the years, but something told him this partnership would be different. Whether that was good or bad remained to be seen, but he'd never been one to back down from a challenge. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change both their lives forever. 2 weeks into their partnership, Soren watched in fascination as Naira demonstrated her healing technique on a holographic simulation. Her aqua-colored hands moved with fluid grace, energy flowing like water between her fingertips. The key is harmony, she explained, her voice carrying that musical lilt that had become familiar to him. We don't force healing, we guide the body's natural energy back into balance. Different from my approach, Soren admitted, thinking of the more direct methods he'd developed in combat. I tend to. He made a pushing motion with his hands. You overwhelm the injury with healing energy, Naira finished, amusement dancing in her ocean-colored eyes. Effective, but draining for you. She wasn't wrong. After a heavy healing session, he often felt like he'd run a marathon. Their daily practice sessions had already shown him more efficient ways to channel his abilities, though he suspected she was holding back something. Speaking of drain, he said carefully, noting the slight tremor in her hands, you're pushing yourself too hard again. Naira's shoulders tensed. I'm fine. You're not. Soren moved closer, his healer's senses picking up the chaotic swirl of energy beneath her calm exterior. Your power levels are all over the place. What aren't you telling me? She turned away, moving to the window that overlooked the city's gleaming towers. It's complicated. Try me. He kept his voice gentle but firm. I can't help if I don't understand what's happening. Naira was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Have you heard of the surge? Can't say that I have. It's a biological cycle my people go through, she explained, still not looking at him. Our healing abilities intensify dramatically. Under normal circumstances, we would channel the excess energy into community healing projects. But alone. She shuddered. Understanding dawned. That's what I've been sensing, you're approaching this surge. Naira nodded miserably. It makes us more powerful, but also more vulnerable. The hunters. Her voice caught. They track us during this time. Our energy signature becomes impossible to hide. Soren felt a protective anger stir in his chest. How long? A few days, maybe less. I should leave. She finally turned to face him, her expression pained. I've already put you at risk by staying this long. Not happening. Soren crossed his arms, his military bearing showing through. You're safer here than anywhere else. We'll figure this out together. You don't understand, Naira protested. During the surge, my control becomes unreliable. The energy seeks outlets. Connection. A faint darker blue colored her cheeks. It can be overwhelming for those nearby. I'm not exactly defenseless, Soren reminded her. Besides, maybe that's the answer. She tilted her head questioningly. You need to channel excess energy. I can help absorb and redirect it. We could balance each other out. That's. Naira's eyes widened. Actually, that might work. But it would require intense physical proximity. The energy transfer would be intimate. Now it was Soren's turn to feel heat rise in his face. Over the past weeks, he'd grown increasingly aware of Naira as more than just a patient or colleague. The grace of her movements, the musical laugh she tried to suppress during his bad jokes, the brilliant mind behind those otherworldly eyes, all of it drew him in ways he tried to ignore. "I trust you," he said simply. Something softened in Naira's expression. She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the energy radiating from her skin. "And I trust you." "But Soren." She placed a hand on his chest, just over his heart. "This isn't just about trust. The surge affects emotions, intensifies connections. If we do this, then we do it," he finished, covering her hand with his own. The contact sent a jolt through him, her energy calling to his in ways he was only beginning to understand. A crash from the reception area shattered the moment. They sprang apart as heavy footsteps approached the treatment room. "Someone's here," Naira whispered, fear threading through her voice. Soren moved to stand between her and the door, his body tensing for combat. "Stay behind me." The door burst open, revealing a hulking figure in matte black armor. Glowing red sensors covered its helmet, all trained on Naira. "Target located," it growled in a mechanically enhanced voice. "Surrender the Celestin healer." Soren's response was immediate and profane. Energy gathered in his hands, not the gentle healing warmth he usually channeled, but something sharper, honed by years of combat experience. "Last warning," the hunter said. "The bounty specifies alive, but doesn't mention unharmed." "Funny," Soren replied, dropping into a fighting stance. "I was about to say the same thing." Behind him, he felt Naira's energy surge in response to the threat, their powers resonating in unexpected ways. As the hunter raised its weapon, Soren allowed himself a grim smile. He'd protected his patients through a decade of war. He wasn't about to stop now. Especially not when this particular patient had become so much more than that. The hunter never stood a chance. Before it could fire, Soren channeled a burst of concentrated healing energy, reversed. Instead of mending tissue, the blast disrupted the hunter's neural pathways, dropping it to the floor in an unconscious heap. That, Naira said shakily, was not a traditional healing technique. Soren grimaced, flexing his tingling hands. "Combat medic, remember? Sometimes healing means making sure the other guy stays down." He knelt to examine their attacker. "We need to move. Where there's one hunter, there will be more," Naira finished. Her skin had taken on a luminescent quality, energy practically crackling around her. "The surge, it's accelerating. They must have detected the spike in my energy signature. My apartment has better security than the clinic. We'll go there." Soren quickly gathered essential supplies, his military training taking over. "Can you walk?" Naira took a step and stumbled, her legs shaking. The surge was hitting her hard now, her control slipping. Soren caught her, and the moment their skin touched, energy arced between them like lightning. "Sorry," she gasped, trying to pull away. "I can't, it's too much." "Don't fight it," he murmured, drawing her closer. "Let me help." He opened himself to her energy, creating a channel for the excess power to flow through him. It was overwhelming, like trying to contain a star in his bare hands, but he held on. Gradually, Naira's trembling subsided. She looked up at him with wonder. "How are you doing that?" "No idea," he admitted. "But we can figure it out somewhere safer. Come on." They made it to his apartment just as night was falling. Soren activated his security systems, military grade, another remnant of his service years, and drew the blinds. Naira sank onto his couch, her skin still glowing faintly. "Talk to me," he said, handing her a glass of water. "What exactly happens during this surge?" "It's complicated." She took a shaky sip. "The surge evolved as part of our communal healing practices. The excess energy would be shared among many healers, used to help the entire community. In isolation." She gestured to herself. "The power builds with nowhere to go. It seeks connection, release. Through healing. Through any form of energy exchange. That deeper blue blush colored her cheeks again. Physical contact becomes intense. Overwhelming. It's why I tried to leave. I didn't want to force this connection on you. Soren sat beside her, close enough to feel the heat radiating from her skin. You're not forcing anything. I meant what I said about helping. You don't understand what you're offering. Naira's voice was strained. The connection during surge, it's not just physical. Energy, emotions, memories, everything flows together. There's no hiding, no holding back. You've seen inside my head before, he pointed out. During their healing sessions, she'd glimpsed fragments of his memories, the war, the lives lost and saved, the toll it had taken. Not like this. She reached out, trailing fingers along his arm. Where she touched, energy sparked and danced. This would be complete immersion. Total vulnerability. Soren caught her hand, interlacing their fingers. The contact sent shivers of power through them both. You're not the only one who's been holding back, you know. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? Instead of answering, he showed her. He lowered his carefully maintained barriers, letting her feel what he'd been trying to ignore, his growing fascination with her, the way her laugh made his heart race, how seeing her in pain made something fierce and protective rise in his chest. Oh, Naira breathed. Her free hand came up to cup his cheek, and this time the energy that flowed between them carried wonder, hope, and something deeper. The moment shattered as his security system blared a warning. Multiple contacts approaching. Armed. They found us, Naira said unnecessarily, trying to pull away. Soren held firm. Let them come. His voice was steady, certain. I have an idea, but I need you to trust me completely. No barriers, no holding back. What are you planning? Remember how you said my healing style lacks subtlety? He smiled grimly. Time to see what happens when we combine your finesse with my raw power. You up for it? Understanding dawned in her eyes. The energy merger, it's dangerous. In this state, I could overwhelm your system. Or we could overwhelm theirs. He stood, pulling her up with him. Either way, I'm done running. And I'm definitely done letting anyone hurt you. Naira studied him for a long moment, then squeezed his hand. Together then. As heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs, Soren pulled her close. Their energy signatures merged, expanded, became something entirely new. Power unlike anything either of them had experienced flowed between them, through them, around them. The door burst open. A squad of hunters filed in, weapons raised. Soren and Naira moved as one, their combined energy building to impossible levels. The hunters never knew what hit them. And in that moment of perfect synchronization, as their powers and consciousness merged, both of them realized there would be no going back from this. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The surge was only beginning. The aftermath of their merged power left Soren's apartment looking like a war zone. Unconscious hunters lay scattered across the floor, their advanced armor systems completely fried by the energy surge. But Soren barely noticed the destruction, he was too focused on Naira. She swayed in his arms, her skin pulsing with waves of blue light. Their consciousness were still partially merged, letting him feel the storm raging inside her. The surge was reaching its peak, and their display of power had only intensified it. That was. She gasped, incredible. Terrifying, but incredible. Yeah. Soren wasn't sure where his thoughts ended and hers began anymore. Their combined energy hummed between them like a living thing. We need to move. That little light show probably attracted every hunter in the sector. Too late. A new voice, cold and mechanical, came from the doorway. But thank you for the demonstration. Most illuminating. They turned to face a figure that made the other hunters look like toys. The armor was similar but more advanced, covered in pulsing red lines that seemed to drink in the light. But it was the energy signature that made Soren's blood run cold, a bottomless void, hungry and ancient. Ravik, Naira breathed, terror and recognition flooding their shared consciousness. Little healer. The hunter's helmet retracted, revealing a face mapped with cybernetic implants. His eyes were solid black, like holes in reality. Did you think you could hide forever? Though I must admit, finding you with a human wielder was unexpected. Soren shifted to shield Naira, though their connection told him it was futile. This was the one who had started hunting Celestin healers, who had developed the technology to drain and store their energy. Through their link, he saw flashes of what Ravik had done to Naira's people. You're not touching her, Soren growled, gathering what energy he had left. Ravik laughed, the sound like grinding metal. Protective, isn't he? But you can feel it, can't you? The way your energies resonate. Humans shouldn't have such abilities. It's unnatural. Says the guy who turned himself into a cyborg vampire, Soren shot back. He felt Naira's surprise at his defiance, her fear for him. A crude analogy, but not entirely inaccurate. Ravik stepped forward, those black eyes fixed on them. I've spent centuries collecting energy from specialized beings across the galaxy. But this. He gestured to their linked hands. This synthesis is new. Perhaps I'll study you both. After I drain you, of course. He moved with impossible speed, crossing the room before either could react. A hand like ice closed around Soren's throat, and he felt his energy being pulled away, torn from his body. Through their link, he heard Naira scream. But something was wrong. Ravik's grip faltered. What is this? Soren managed a pained smile. Didn't do your homework, did you? Military memories flashed through his mind, experiments, modifications, the price paid for his healing gift. Human energy isn't quite like Celestin. A lot more volatile. He stopped fighting the drain. Instead, he pushed everything he had directly into Ravik's system. Raw, unfiltered human healing energy slammed into centuries of stolen power. Through their link, Naira understood instantly. She added her own energy, not fighting Ravik's pull but amplifying it. The hunter's cybernetics began to spark and smoke. No, stop, too much. Funny thing about healing energy, Soren gasped as Ravik's grip weakened. Give someone too much life force at once. And their system overloads, Naira finished. Together, they poured everything they had into Ravik. Their combined power, enhanced by the surge and driven by desperation, was too much for even his advanced systems to handle. The hunter's cybernetics exploded in a shower of sparks, and he crumpled to the floor. Soren stumbled, completely drained. Only Naira's support kept him upright. Through their fading link, he felt her worry, her relief, her. Don't, he murmured as she gathered healing energy. You need it more than me right now. The surge is not more important than your life. Her voice was firm as she channeled power into him, restoring his depleted energy. Besides, I think it's stabilizing. She was right. Their merged power had somehow balanced the wild fluctuations of the surge. The glow of her skin had softened to a gentle shimmer, and their mental link, while still present, was no longer overwhelming. How do you feel? He asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Different. Calm. She leaned into his touch. When our powers merged, it was like finding a missing piece of myself. Is that strange? After everything that's happened today, that might be the least strange thing. He pulled her closer, both of them taking comfort in the steady flow of energy between them. What happens now? Now, she said softly, we figure out how to live with this connection. If that's what you want. In answer, Soren kissed her. Their energy sang between them, no longer chaotic but harmonious. Perfect. When they finally parted, Naira's eyes were shining. I'll take that as a yes. Damn right. He glanced at Ravik's still form. Though first, we should probably deal with him. And maybe find a new apartment. Naira laughed, the sound like music. Always so practical. Hey, someone has to be. Besides. He grinned. I have a feeling life with you is going to be anything but boring. As they began securing Ravik for the authorities, Soren reflected that he'd never imagined his healing abilities would lead him here. But standing beside Naira, their powers and lives intertwined, he knew he wouldn't have it any other way. The war was over. Now the real adventure could begin. 6 months after Ravik's defeat, Flora Springs Integrated Healing Center opened its doors. The renovated Victorian mansion stood as a testament to new beginnings, its gardens filled with both earth plants and carefully cultivated celestine flora that shimmered in the morning light. Soren adjusted the welcome sign, still amused by their tagline, where human and alien healing traditions merge. Not exactly subtle, but then again, subtlety had never been his strong suit. The morning class is here, Naira called from inside. Through their permanent bond, he felt her excitement tingled with nervousness. Teaching other healers to merge different energy techniques was still new territory for both of them. Today's group included 3 human energy workers and 2 young Celestine healers, the first to emerge from hiding since Ravik's network had been dismantled. The sight of them still filled Naira with bittersweet joy, hope mixed with memories of all those lost. Welcome, Soren addressed the group in the main practice room. Today we'll be exploring the basics of energy synthesis. He caught Naira's eye, sharing a private smile. Though hopefully with less property damage than our first attempt. The students exchanged uncertain glances. Their story had spread through both healing communities, growing more dramatic with each retelling. Some called them heroes. Others thought they were reckless. A few even claimed they were dangerous. Human and Celestine energy was never meant to mix so completely. Soren had stopped caring about the critics. The results spoke for themselves. Healing isn't just about fixing what's broken, Naira explained, moving to stand beside him. Their energy signatures harmonized automatically, creating a gentle resonance that made the students' eyes widen. It's about finding balance, understanding that different doesn't mean incompatible. Sometimes, Soren added, the most powerful healing comes from embracing new possibilities, even when they seem impossible. They demonstrated a basic energy merger, their powers dancing together in familiar patterns. Through their bond, he felt Naira's contentment, her joy in sharing their discoveries with others. The dark days of running and hiding felt like a distant dream. After class, as they walked through their healing gardens, Naira brushed her fingers against a crystalline flower that responded to energy signatures. It glowed briefly, recognizing the unique harmony of their combined power. I had a message from the Celestine Council this morning, she said, her tone carefully neutral. But through their link, Soren felt her mix of hope and apprehension. Good news or bad? They want to establish a permanent embassy here. Make Flora Springs an official sanctuary city for our healers. She paused. They've asked us to help design the training programs. Soren whistled. That's huge. Though I'm guessing there's a catch. Some council members are concerned about our methods. They think we're being too experimental, pushing boundaries that existed for a reason. She turned to face him, ocean eyes serious. They want proof that human Celestine energy synthesis is consistently safe and controllable. Ah. Soren pulled her close, their energy flowing together as naturally as breathing. So they want us to be their test subjects. More like their proof of concept. Through their bond, he felt her underlying worry. It would mean more scrutiny, more tests, more politics, he finished with a grimace. Yeah, not my favorite thing either. But He considered it. If it helps more people like us find each other, learn to work together. It could change everything, Naira agreed softly. No more healers in hiding. No more artificial divisions between our methods. Then we do it. Soren's voice was firm. Besides, when have we ever backed down from a challenge? Naira laughed, the sound still his favorite melody. True. Though this time, try not to blow up any buildings during the demonstrations. Hey, that was one time. And technically, Ravik Cybernetics did the exploding. He grinned. But I'll be on my best behavior. Probably. Their bond hummed with shared amusement and affection. Looking at Naira, radiant in the garden they'd built together, Soren marveled at how much had changed. His military-trained healing abilities, once viewed with suspicion, had found their perfect complement in her Celestin techniques. Their impossible connection had opened doors for others like them. What are you thinking? Naira asked, though she could undoubtedly feel the direction of his thoughts. Just that I'm glad you walked into my clinic that day. He brushed a kiss against her temple. Even if it did lead to multiple explosions and property damage. Smooth talker. But she leaned into him, their energy signatures merging into that familiar harmony. Though I suppose nearly getting drained by a cybernetic energy vampire was worth it, in the end. That's us, turning near-death experiences into teaching opportunities. As if in response, their merged energy rippled outward, making the crystalline flowers glow in waves of blue and gold. New students would arrive tomorrow, each carrying their own fears and hopes. The council would watch and measure and debate. But here in their garden, surrounded by the living proof of what different healing traditions could create together, none of that mattered. They had found their synthesis, in power, in purpose, in love. And really, Soren thought as Naira pulled him down for a proper kiss, that was the greatest healing of all.